Welcome back to Paddle Her Way. I'm BobbieAnne,
And I'm Sonya.
and today we are diving into 8 actionable tips for becoming a better paddler this season. So, we're already in the midst of paddle season here in the US, and there are a lot of tips that we're going to be bringing you today. Whether you're a beginner or you're experienced, there's always room for growth. So, let's jump into these tips today. The very first one that we're going to start off with is setting goals. That's the most important part. You can't improve if you don't know where you're going.
It's an excellent point. Yeah, setting a goal is important because I think if you try and just think, oh, hey, I want to become a better paddler, that is too broad of a goal, and therefore you just tend to not want to try and you don't know where to start. So setting a paddling goal is important, but also taking things in bite-sized chunks. So setting an achievable goal is also important. Something that it could be something like increasing your speed, learning how to paddle a new vessel. Maybe it's trying to conquer a specific waterway. Like if you've been paddling on lakes, maybe you want to paddle on a river instead and see how that is versus, a different type of experience.
So the next part of that is paddle strokes. So one of the easiest ways to become a better paddler no matter what vessel you're on is improving your strokes, because how you perfect your stroke and perfecting your technique is going to lessen your strain. It's going to make your whole experience a lot easier if you're figuring out better ways to not put so much stress on your body.
Yeah, it's one of the things I learned. So I paddled many, many, many years ago, and there was a big gap. And then I hopped back into a kayak and for the first time, and I was paddling on my own. And then I started paddling in a group with some friends. And I had not realized I had been holding my paddle upside down for so long. So it's just something as simple as that, just making sure that your paddle is, holding your paddle up, the correct way. The other thing is that you spend so much time, especially when you're learning from beginner, that you're trying to learn just how to balance or sit comfortably and move the board or the kayak in the right way, that you don't think about the actual stroke and how you're using your body and your core, not just your arms, in order to generate that power for each of the strokes that you're doing. So, like for kayakers, for example, keeping your paddle close to your boat creates a much smoother, more efficient stroke. When you're on a paddleboard, if you're using your actual body core versus just your arms, you'll get a lot more strength from the pull on your paddle. Practicing those techniques, there's a couple of ways to do it. I've used YouTube videos. I'll just search in YouTube and see if there's a video that can teach me these things so I can improve myself. And it takes a lot of strain. Like you'll end up with a lot of shoulder pain if you don't paddle correctly. And so these things kind of relax your body a bit and make the experience a lot more enjoyable.
Yeah, for sure. I have to ask, who was it that pointed out to you that your paddle was upside down?
It
How
was
did you find
actually
out?
it was a friend, and we had paddled all the way across a very busy lake, and we got to the other side, and they're like, "By the way, you're holding your paddle upside down." Died of embarrassment.
Oh,
Yeah.
so the trip back was a little easier when you flipped it over, huh?
100%. Yeah, 100%. One thing that I want to point out is some people actually film themselves
Mhm.
paddling, so you can see how you actually look. If you don't have that friend that can tell you how you look when you're paddling. I typically paddle now with a friend, and she was always videoing me or taking photos, and we look back at each other's film videos and see how are we looking while we're paddling, and are we using that core? Are we bending our knees when we're paddleboarding? What's our stroke look like if we're kayaking? So that's a good way to kind of see exactly how you are performing. It's hard to know, am I doing the right thing or not, without looking at video.
Yeah, that's a really great tip for really any physical activity. I danced all through high school, and that was something that we always, because sometimes the way that you feel your body looks is not the way that you're actually positioning. So, whether you're like working out or dancing or paddling or anything else, when you're learning something new for the first time, videoing yourself is a really great tip.
Yeah, and you don't have to publish it. It's just for your own use. So yeah, so don't feel afraid of it.
Yeah, nobody has to see it. You can just keep it. So you had mentioned core. That is actually our third tip on this is building strength and endurance off of the water. So when you're getting into it, if you have certain areas that are lacking, whether it's your shoulders or arms or core, building that up before you get on the water is going to make your trip a lot easier.
Exactly. And one of the things, I have a fitness coach, and one of the things she tells me all the time is the planks are one of the most important exercises you can do to build that body core. I hate them. So
Don't we all?
yeah, doing planks or Russian twists, and if you don't know what those are, just kind of Google those too. But they're kind of the things that you need to consider or be doing relatively frequently in order to build that core and keep that core strong. Also, your shoulders and back are very important for rowing, for paddleboarding and for kayaking. So, doing exercises where your arms, maybe as a rowing technique or pull-ups, resistant band workouts. I have a bunch of resistant bands that I use, and those are surprisingly great ways to grow strength in your arms and your shoulders. And then other things like running or swimming, things that complement paddling that can help kind of build up your leg strength, especially if you're paddleboarding. You're going to be standing a long time. How do you get the strength in your calves and your ankles? By maybe doing a little bit of running, some cycling, or rock climbing even.
Yeah. And a lot of gyms, I actually use this at the one that I go to all the time, is rowing machines. Like they, kind of building up that endurance through the rowing machines before you're actually fighting it against real current is
Yeah.
very helpful. And it really gives you lets you get used to those movements and stuff too. So there's a lot of different ways that you can, whatever fits into your routine, there's a lot of different ways that you can build up that endurance before you get to the water. So, number 4 on the list, and this makes a huge difference, and you really don't have to go on the expensive side of this, but it can be small little tweaks here and there can make big improvements, and that is choosing the right gear.
100%. Your enjoyment is important, and it doesn't have to be expensive. One of the ways that I changed my experience was getting a more lightweight paddle, a carbon fiber paddle. Made it so much easier for me because it's easier to carry for long extended periods. It's much more lightweight. So that's one way I just kind of changed up my experience and improved it. Looking at maybe the vessel size that you have, a lot of people will buy entry level paddle boards just to see if they like it. Maybe it's $100 or something on Amazon, but they just they know they like it. Well, if you want to improve the experience or choose a different size, maybe it's too short, too long for you, just changing that the size of your board or the length of your kayak. I've seen some people will buy a very wide paddle board, which will create a totally different experience on the water than a more narrow one. So fit that the gear or the paddle board to the experience that you want. So if you're on a flat lake, then it's maybe okay to have a big wide paddleboard. But if you're on a fast moving river, then maybe that's not going to be the right kind of tool for the job. We actually, I think, recommend a couple of different brands for things like PFDs. So having I hate wearing. I think everyone hates wearing them, but it's a requirement to have a good PFD with you. Finding that good vest that's going to fit you well. For paddleboarding, we often use a waist one on certain types of water that frees up our arms and upper body. On the kayak, there's nothing worse than sitting in a kayak with a big bulky PFD where it's up around your around your neck and pushing up on your head, and then you're like, just get me out of this thing. So find the good equipment will create a whole different world of experience for you if you have something that's a bit more comfortable.
Yeah, and as we mentioned at the beginning, finding better equipment or improving your journey through equipment doesn't mean a higher price tag. It can even mean just choosing little accessories like the paddle grips for your
Yeah,
kayak paddle. That can make a huge
lifesaver.
difference. Yes, it can make a huge
Yeah,
difference. And you can get those for like $5 to $15, depending on how fancy you want to go.
yeah.
But it's a small investment in your gear that just completely improves the experience, and really finding the right fitting gear too, so that can make a huge difference. You talked about PFDs, which if you guys are newer to this, that is just your life vest, that's your safety gear, that's your flotation device. There's a lot of different ways that you can choose better fitting ones that can, improve your experience and actually gives you a lot more flexibility when you do have a more proper fitting vest or belt or whatever it is that you're choosing. So there's a lot of different avenues. Improving your experience doesn't mean choosing the highest price tag. It just means making improvements to your own adventure.
Yeah, and I think a couple of other things I want to mention is I bought an anchor so that I could, take a break and not be floating around and floating off, and I don't have to worry about drifting downstream or running into trees or into the somebody's house. So I bought an anchor, and that changed my experience. Another thing you could do is just looking at things like making sure you have sunscreen. How many times have you gone out on the water and forgot to take the sunscreen, and then you know you're starting to cook and you're a couple of miles away from your car or wherever you've left your bags. So making sure you're armed with the right tools and having a couple of snacks, things like that, they just can make the experience entirely different.
And the last point I wanted to make on this topic, and we actually did an entire episode surrounded by this, and you referenced it, is choosing the right equipment for the type of environment you're in. So that is going to make a huge difference in helping you become a better paddler. Because if you're fighting against your own vessel because you're using the wrong vessel for the environment you're in, it's going to make your experience a lot harder. Once you change that out and match that up with each other properly, that's going to improve your experience a lot.
Exactly. Yeah. But don't
Yeah.
let it be something that deters you from going out on the water either. Just, be prepared and be prepared for next time, so that what can you learn from each time you go out paddling? What can I do to improve this experience? Come back with that shopping list and look for the gear. And it doesn't have
Yeah.
to be brand new either. A lot of times you can find some of these things secondhand.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's what this entire list is about is, not working towards perfection, but just improving a little bit from wherever you're at, whether you're a beginner or you've been doing this for a long time. And maybe there's just slight things that you can tweak that improves your experience. One of the key points that I think is going to help everyone, of course, is joining a paddling community, being able to talk to other people about your experience, ask questions, share gear, ask for recommendations. I think being part of a community that's doing the same thing that you're doing is going to make a huge difference.
And we've seen that in action. Not that we're biased or anything, but we've seen that in action with girl paddlers just a little bit. So yeah, we've found the most engaged posts that we have in our group are questions from our community, asking for recommendations on gear or on locations, or just trying to meet up with others. Or I'm having this problem. How do you all get around this problem? So yeah, absolutely having access to like-minded people who are in similar position. I think, there are many, many communities available online. I think what makes us a little bit more unique is the fact that we are all women and we all, have this similar kind of struggles. And that I think if you find in a bigger community, we tend to find that a more co-ed community, you find people asking questions that just don't relate to you. But I think most of the things that are popping up in our community tend to be very relatable, and it happens to everybody. So, yeah.
Yeah. Women have a very different experience, especially when we start talking about gear and things of that nature. Like what's going to fit us is, as humans with breasts, that is going to be a completely different fit than
Yeah.
somebody who's completely flat. So, just being in a space where you're comfortable to ask questions like that, or even talk about sizing and knowing that you're an inclusive space, very, very helpful. And of course, if you guys are not in our community, we invite you there. If you're looking for a space like that, we are open to questions all the time, and you're always going to get a wave of answers to any solution that you're looking for. So next up on the list, very important topic and something I can personally need to be working better on myself, is honing your rescue skills.
Yeah, I think it's very, very rare that you find someone who is a expert at self-rescue or rescuing others in the paddling community. And I think this is absolutely something that we all need to work on more. A couple of things that when I first started paddleboarding with a friend, she's like, okay, the first thing you need to do is fall off and know how to get back on. Because that was the thing that was also holding me back from wanting to paddleboard more frequently. Because I'm like, what if I fall in the water? I'm not going to be able to get back on this thing. So falling off and knowing how to get back on and doing that in a space, maybe in shallower water, don't fall off into shallow water, but where you can at least get to shallow water to be able to practice getting back on your board for a self-rescue. arm yourself with a couple of tools. I actually have two ropes. They're kind of cord straps that I've tied onto my kayak, to my paddleboard. I also have the same for my kayak, so that I can pull myself back up without having to kind of grip the sides or grab onto, the D-rings or anything like that. So having a couple of things that are just available to you to help yourself with self-rescue. You practice doing these self-rescues, and then what if you're with somebody? How do you help them get back on? So that assisted rescue scenario where, how do you help them get back onto their kayak, back onto their sup? Just being supportive in a way, or showing them, okay, if you come around to the side and then you pull up on the end, things like that, just helping in an assisted rescue. And I remember years and years and years ago when I was a kid, when you go on some of those summer camps, and kayaking was one of the things we did, we had to learn how to do a roll, to a full roll, to be able to get ourselves from being upside down back to upright in like river water. So rolling your kayak, I actually, it's called an Eskimo roll. I haven't done it since I was a kid, so I should probably practice that.
I've never done that. That's something I need to learn
But
because that's
yeah,
important. It is very important. I've just never been in a situation where I needed to
yeah,
figure that
you need
out
how to
or
upright
even had
yourself. Yeah,
yeah, or even had the opportunity to learn. So I think that's something that we could all be looking for too is search your area, check out your local parks and um, other things of that nature to see if they're offering classes for you because it's
yeah, and
something I need to personally check out.
exactly. And I think another thing is, besides rescue, is this basic first aid training, making sure you're having a first aid kit. I bought a marine one online that's waterproof, in a waterproof clam box container. This has got basic things in it, but things happen when you're out paddling, and having things like that, knowing how to rescue yourself even beyond just the water rescue, but just from any kind of harm, you got bitten, or you cut yourself on something, making sure you know how to handle those. But I think another important piece to this is kind of training yourself how to remain calm under pressure, so not freaking out, because you are often in an environment where either you're alone or you're with a small group, and you need to be calm in order to work your way through rescue or fixing yourself in some way. So yeah, just keeping those types of things in mind. How do you remain calm under pressure? What are the techniques you can use to remain calm under pressure?
Really great advice there. So, moving on to number 7, and this is something that can level up no matter where you're at. This is going to level up your skills for sure, is exploring new waters. So, we touched on this a little bit when we were talking about vessels, but if you are wanting to develop new skills, you've got to change your environment.
Oh, 100%. It's so comfortable to just go paddling where you're most comfortable, and you feel safe and secure, like, your local lake. And stepping out into a river, I think a lot of, the progression people have is they do lake, then they might go to a river, and then open ocean is like a whole different world, and it's scary because there's big things out there, and you could end up in another country
Yeah.
if you don't stay don't stay safe and contained. But I think, yeah, absolutely exploring. And it's not just leveling up, it's also, it's more fun to learn new waterways and new styles of paddling. And how do you paddle along a coastway, or how do you paddle in the ocean, and things like that. And there's you've got waves, you've got currents, you've got wind changes. So yeah, I
Yeah.
think
You
it's
even have to consider things
step
like
out.
buoyancy. Like when you're paddling in different types of water, whether it's freshwater or saltwater, things float differently, things flow differently. Just the way that the water moves and the currents are different.
Things change dramatically too, like on ocean, even on lakes, on larger lakes. Recently, a few weeks ago, in Florida, there was a couple of girls that went out on a paddleboard off the coast of Crystal River, just north of Crystal River, and they found them something like 12 hours later, drifted miles away to another part of the Gulf Coast. So yeah, just knowing and understanding, but not don't have that again deter you. Just know what you're getting into and be prepared for it using your rescue skills.
That's that's intense. I feel like probably like mile 3 I'd be like, "Hey guys, I don't think we're going the right way anyway. We might be a little off base."
Yeah,
um,
I don't think they got lost. I think they ended up getting drifted out with the current because they just didn't know
oh,
how strong the current was going to be, and
so
ended
there
up
was
taking them, and they couldn't paddle
no
against it.
fighting
So
it.
yeah, they ended up, yeah,
Mm.
exactly.
So, last up on our list, and as we're recording this, you're listening to this midsummer, but as we're recording this, we're actually creeping up on Earth Day. And so, protecting your environment is a really important way to level up your skills and become a better paddler. Because as we consider the environment around us, that's really what's giving us our experience. If we're not protecting our waterways, we're not thinking about the ecosystem around us, then eventually we're not going to have those areas to enjoy. So that's something we really have to consider.
I think too, when you are more considerate of the waterway, you think more about the connection with nature. So when you're going out paddling, you're not just floating on the water and looking at the sky and looking at the trees around you. You're really understanding the environment you're in, and how is the lake created, what's at the bottom of the lake, what kind of fish are in the lake. So thinking of all those things, I think, gives you that deeper experience too, and more enjoyable experience. So protecting your environment is a very big piece of that. I think one of the things that I've become a lot more conscious on is putting on sunscreen, because I'm a very pink person, as in my skin is very pink and very freckly. I get sunburned very quickly. So I wear sunscreen all the time. And it's important for me to find a reef safe sunscreen, something that's going to be okay for the environment, because a lot of sunscreens, you hop in the water, that sunscreen has some toxic elements to it that will kill a lot of the marine life. So Stream to Sea, I think, is one of the partners that we have, and they've created a great product that is safe for reefs and for the different aspects of the waterway and marine life. So yeah, find that product or the products that are really safe and help versus hinder with the environment.
I think that's something in the last few years I've been much more conscious about because I have lived the coastal life for many, many years, and now I'm back in Tennessee. But it's something that I've just learned along the way that it's really counterproductive. You're doing all of this to protect your own skin, and then you're going out on this great adventure to see all of this cool wildlife, but you're actually damaging the wildlife that you're spending all this time paddling out to go see. So it's very counterproductive that way. So choosing products that are not going to be damaging to the things that you love to look at and enjoy definitely makes the most sense. Another key factor in protecting the environment that I think we talk about, whether you're paddling or hiking or just enjoying nature in any type of way, is leave no trace practice.
Yeah, big time. Yeah, pack in what you pack out. Pack out what you pack in. Yeah, pack out what you pack in. Yeah, take all the trash with you. Take other people's trash if you see it, and don't try not to use things like disposable straws or wrappers or things where you have to dispose of. I recently did a paddle on Wiki Wachi down in Florida, and they require that you can't use disposable products. So you can't bring a disposable cup or plastic wrapped anything. It has to be in a container that is going to be reused. So water bottle had to be a reusable water bottle, reusable containers for food, things like that. So I like that idea where don't take things that are plastic that could, even if you don't mean to, unfortunately fly away, fall off your boat into the water, and you're leaving all that trash to just float down to the bottom or float into the bushes and into the wildlife, and who knows what you're harming. So pack out what you pack in, and don't disturb anything when it comes to plants and wildlife. Don't go traipsing over everything and squishing all the. I mean, you don't know what unique plants are around that you could be stamping on when you're hopping off your board or your kayak. So just be very aware of the wildlife and the plants, and don't go chasing down the animals that you're seeing on the side of your lake. Just be respectful.
Yeah, as hard as it is sometimes to keep your hands to yourself when you
Yes,
see something
BobbieAnne.
very, very cute. I was just talking about this when we were in Crystal River. I had a giant manatee swim so close, and it took everything in me to keep my hands to myself. But, it is keeping nature wild and not interfering. And, you never know how your interaction is going to affect everything else around it, whether that's, disturbing a nest somewhere and that the parents don't come back for the babies, or a lot of young animals, when they get scared, they die because the adrenaline literally stops their heart from being scared. So keeping your hands to yourself, it's important.
Yeah. And we want nature to be there for everybody to enjoy, not just ourselves. So we kind of ruin it if we start to, you know, mess with it.
Make sure that you're coexisting and
Yeah.
not, trying to intrude too much. That was the last tip on our list. Let's do a quick recap. And we're also going to have all of these details in a nice, clean blog post wrapped up for you with a few more details that we haven't chatted about today. But you'll get all of these tips wrapped up in a nice little bundle, which, of course, we'll have in the show notes for you. Number one, set your paddling goal. Number two, perfect your paddling stroke. No matter what vessel you're paddling, it's going to make a big difference. Number three, build strength and endurance off of the water. So when you get on the water, it's going to be a little easier to adventure. Number four, choosing the right gear, whether that's fit or accessories or anything else of that nature. And then number five, join a paddling community, which of course we'll link ours down in the notes because we pretend that we're not, but we are a little biased. Number six, hone your rescue skills. So that's one of the biggest ones on the list. No matter what environment you're in, no matter what you're paddling, whether you're solo or with a group, rescue skills majorly important. Number seven, exploring new waters. And then, of course, number eight, which we just finished up with, is protecting the environment around you. Hopefully these tips are helpful, that you'll take some of these and prove yourself over the rest of the season. We still got plenty of time to be paddling for the rest of the summer and into the fall. And then if you guys are on the other side of the planet, when we're going to be wrapping up over here, you guys are going to be starting. So no matter what part of the year you're in, these tips are going to help you along the way. Thanks so much for joining us for another episode. We'll have all of this information in the show notes for you. Of course, you can find us anywhere on social media at Girl Paddlers. Happy paddling.